Good morning, everyone, or if it's afternoon where you are, good afternoon. I want to wish you a good day. My name is Tori Carmen, and I'm a representative with Humana. And today, what we're going to be talking about is a very important topic that I know is probably important to you, and it's a simple overview of how we can prevent falls. Now, going into this, my name, of course, is Tori Carmen. I am a sales associate with Humana. Now, the reason why I tell you that is that you don't look at me as if I'm a healthcare provider. So a lot of the information that you're going to see today may require that you may talk to a healthcare provider. In that case, we want to give you this disclaimer, right? So this presentation was developed by our clinical staff, right? And we pulled in a lot of key information that's going to really boil all this information down for you. But if you do have questions today, I want to make sure that you direct them to your healthcare provider and bring them into this conversation. Fair enough? All right. So with that being said, I just want to give you a couple of quick things to remember while we go over this presentation. The things we talk about really don't replace what you may have gotten as guidance from your healthcare team. So if you do have any questions or concerns, make sure you talk to that with your doctor, right? And then, of course, if you start any new exercise or any kind of new regimen in accordance to any tips that you receive from us today, definitely bring your healthcare provider into that. So now that we got all of those disclaimers out of the way, I want to go ahead and get started, all right? So going into the conversation of how we can prevent falls, we have a very simple agenda. Basically, it's going to be covered in 4 simple topics. 1 being important facts about falls, just a quick overview. Then number 2, we're going to talk about risk factors that actually contribute to falls. Number 3 is we're going to talk about some tips to help you avoid having any falls in and around your home or out and about, right? And then number 4 is how you can keep safe wherever you are from falls, and basically how to mitigate those experiences. Going forward, I want to start today's overview just by giving you a quick little quiz. Now, we're going to test your knowledge about, your fall prevention IQ. Okay, so the first question is, can you guess whether each statement below is true or false? The first question being, is falls are a normal part of aging and there's nothing you can do about it? What did your answer come out? False, correct? Right, false. Because the answer to that is it's false. Falling is not something that's normal that happens as you get older. And there are several steps you can actually take to significantly reduce your risk of falling. So we'll be talking about many of those things today. All right. The second question, true or false? Taking medications increases your risk of falling. The answer to that one is actually what? It's true. The correct answer is true because some medications do produce some side effects that may make people feel dizzy or may actually people feel somewhat sleepy. So those types of side effects can have some negative interactions with other medications and can increase your risk of falling. So that's definitely something to be aware of. Next question is this: sticking close to home will keep you fall free. The answer to that question is false. That's right. As you'll learn later in this presentation, a significant number of falls actually happen while we're at home. So expecting our home for fall hazards is one of those really important steps that we can take, and we'll talk about that later in the presentation. And the last question I want to ask you is this: true or false? Once you've lost muscle strength and flexibility, you can't get it back. True or false? If you said false, you are correct, because it's common to become weaker, right, and less limber as we get older, but we all know that exercise can help restore lost strength and flexibility with our doctors of K, of course, and it's never too late to get started. So I like to think of it as this: it's never too late to get started and it's never too early. So one of the things we want to do is make sure that if we can, try and incorporate some type of exercise, but we'll get into that in the summary piece going forward. All right, so if you or know someone who has fallen, you're not alone, right? Because each year we find that millions of older adults have experienced some type of fall. So we're going to talk about some important facts about falls, right? More than 1 out of 4 adults have fallen each year, but less than half of those actually tell their healthcare provider. And unfortunately, after falling once, a person's risk of falling actually increases. It's actually doubled. right? We also find that 20% of falls result in serious injuries such as broken bones or sometimes head injuries. And basically when that happens, we find that a lot of our older adults end up getting care in emergency rooms, right? And then of course we've seen that many people who have fallen become afraid of falling again, and it becomes like a mental concern, right? And this often leads them to feeling like they need to become less active or and that actually cause a cascading of events where they become weaker, and basically that actually increases their chances of falling, right? So falls aren't caused by just one thing, and what we're finding is that most falls are actually a combination of many hazards that all culminate together, and we call those risk factors. So one of the things that we're going to discuss today is how to lower those risk factors. Fair enough? All right. So here's a good question. Could you be at risk at falling, right? So to help determine your risk for falling, we're going to answer basically these three questions. Number one, have you fallen in the past year? Okay, that's a question you want to ask yourself. Number two, do you feel unsteady when you're standing or walking? All right, and then number three, do you worry about falling? Like, do you consciously think about it when you're out and about? That's something to answer. Now, if you have answered yes to any of these questions, you could be considered at an increased risk for falling, right? And so what we're going to do is kind of get into that. Now, one of the things that we want to first point out is that basically there are risk factors for falls, and many things can cause a fall like we talked about. Let's look at some of those things that can increase those risks. One, first being is poor vision and or hearing, right? Yes, because like having poor hearing can increase your risk as well. Certain health conditions do contribute to your risk. We also find that certain medications or a combination of medications can increase those risks. Muscle weakness is another risk factor, right? Balance and inner ear concerns can actually alter your gait, right? And those can be a risk factor. One of the things that we call postural hypotension, that can be a risk factor. We're going to point out some safety hazards, and then of course foot problems, and believe it or not, improper footwear. So when you piece all of these items together, those can create those risk factors that can increase your risk of falling, but if we've actually mitigated them, that can actually decrease our risk. Fair enough? All right. So some of the simple steps that we can basically take to prevent falling is a couple of them, right? Now that you have a better understanding of what are those risk factors, we're going to talk about some simple steps that you can take to prevent them. Now, remember, most of the time, falls don't just happen, right? They're often avoidable, but it may require us to make some changes, right? So next we'll discuss 6 fall prevention steps, right? And worse, it's going to be working with your healthcare provider. The second one is really going to be about staying physically active. The third is really going to be about removing what we call those fall hazards from around our home. The fourth is going to be about how we can wear functional footwear. Then we're going to talk about having proper vision and hearing checkups on a routine basis. And then we're going to talk about how to be mindful of fall threats when we're out and about, all right? So the first one we talked about is working with your healthcare team, right? Because step one is really going to start there, because your healthcare provider can help assess your risk of falling and can give you some tools really to help you stay safe. And in fact, it's a good idea to discuss your fall at each, like if you've had a fall, at each appointment that you have with your primary doctor, because if you have experienced something like that, that's definitely one of those concerns you want to bring up to your primary care provider when you have your appointments. Because when you're talking to your provider about falls, they may be prepared to discuss maybe some of your medications. So one of the things you want to do when you have those appointments is bring in all of your medications that you're taking. And I'm talking about your prescription medications as well as any kind of over-the-counter medications that you're taking, right? And bring them in so that your provider can review those medicines with you and kind of go over any type of side effects or combinations that can actually, create certain side effects, right? That could increase your risk of falling. And in some cases, they may consider weaning you off of those medications, or if they feel that it's necessary, they may actually try and sub out a medication and try with a different alternative that doesn't have those side effects. All right. It's also important to share your fall history with your provider, including any falls that you've experienced since your last checkup. No matter how minor it was, you definitely want to bring it up to them, because it may alert them to some problems that you may be having. It may suggest to them that you may be a candidate for physical therapy, right? Or if you may need some assistance or possibly an assistive device, right, to kind of help you mitigate any kind of falls in the future. So definitely, if you have any kind of fall history since your last appointment, definitely bring that up to your provider. And then also, talk about your health status. If you notice some conditions are changing, or if you feel like you're off balance, or if you're feeling like, lightheadedness when you stand up or things like that, that's a concern you want to definitely bring up to your healthcare provider. So basically, we really kind of nailing down a lot of items that we want to talk about, because the first step is really you want to talk about any kind of concerns you have with your healthcare provider team. And I think we nailed that down, right? So step 2 is really going to be about how we can stay physically active. That's right. Because step 2 about staying physically active really encourages us to basically start exercising to help reduce the risk of falls. Because we all know that exercising can actually improve our strength, right? It can improve our balance. It can give us coordination and flexibility. Plus, weight-bearing exercises like walking or climbing stairs can actually help us to slow the progression of bone loss through osteoporosis, right? And being that I'm here right here today at the Pinnacle, I know we have great exercise programs I think are recorded and that we have access to. So definitely use the tools and the resources that are available to you through programs like that we have here at the Pinnacle. Okay, consider activities like walking, stairs, and then of course there are water workouts, and that I want to nail down again right here at the Pinnacle. I know they have a pool, so whenever we get into a situation where we can now go back to normal, that's probably something you want to kind of talk about, like how can we get engaged in some maybe aquatic therapies or do some water workouts that may help us to get some strengthening back in those muscles, right? All right, so we talk about trying a variety of exercises, and definitely I kind of like water workouts because it's a lot of good way to get resistance in there. But once again, once we get back to a normal condition in the world, that's definitely something to keep an eye out for. And then of course, talking to your healthcare provider also can help, because they may be able to find some best exercise programs that can fit you if they need to, tailor fit it. But one of the ways that we can really just incorporate balance exercises into our daily routine is to basically just think about chair exercises, right? And if I can demonstrate really quickly, if you have access to a chair, a sink, the back of a counter, like in the kitchen or something like that, if we were to do a daily routine just to do balance exercises, one very simple one would be to, like, of course, being safe, have the back of a chair, right? And then try just alternating, lifting one leg off the ground, right, for a count of 10 seconds, right? Try and maintain your balance by holding on to the chair. And then after a count of 10, lower the leg and then repeat on the other side for a count of 10, right? And then as we see that we're progressing in that realm, we can just try and increase that now from 10 seconds to 15 seconds. Right? And we're going to do a progression for 15 seconds on the left side. And we're going to keep increasing, going from 10 to 15 to 20 to 25 to 30 seconds on each leg. Alternating, doing that on a daily basis can actually strengthen our leg muscles and can help us get better balance, right? There's another quick exercise that we can also try using, of course, the back of a chair or a counter or like a sink. It's basically go to the tippy toes, right? To the balls of our feet on our toes, and stay there for a count of 10 seconds, and then rotate back to our heels, right? For a count of 10 seconds. And then alternate going back and forth. And we want to do that for at least a minute, right? Those two simple exercises, along with some other items that we could try, actually do a good job of helping us to increase our balance, right? And basically strengthen our gait on our feet, such that when we're walking and about, we actually have some improvement in our balance. So that's one of those simple things that we can actually incorporate into our daily routine. And it only takes maybe 1 to 5 minutes a day. Try that, okay? The next one is we want to talk about removing home hazards, because really we need to think about this. Most falls actually happen, believe it or not, in the home. They say 75% of all falls happen actually while we're in our place of where we live, right? So we want to make sure that, while we're in the proximity of our homes, that we're making sure that we're keeping out for any kind of fall hazard. So making some simple changes can actually make your home safer and can actually help you prevent falls. So to get started, we're going to follow just 2 simple steps. One, we're going to assess our home, right? And we're going to begin by looking for potential fall hazards like poor lighting and clutter in and around our homes. And then the second step, very simple, is we're going to act now, right? To remove or repair any hazards and to consider maybe adding additional safety measures like assistive devices or maybe grab bars, okay? And so the next step is we're going to kind of go like step by step from room to room, right, through our home to kind of help you kind of iron out what are some of those key items that may be risk for falls, right? And we're going to break it down to basically these six places in our home. So the first one is going to be floors, right? You want to look at the floors to make sure that they're free of clutter, any kind of paper, books, towels, boxes, because some of us like I can just share this really quickly. My wife thinks I'm kind of like a hoarder. I kind of keep like boxes, even if I buy a new device or technology, I keep the box or I keep the manuals, and they can just start stacking up, right, over time. And so one of the things that we want to do is when we're looking around the floors, we want to make sure that any type of clutter, whether it's paper, boxes, towels, X, Y, and Z, we want to make sure that we're moving that out, right? If we have any removable rugs, we want to make sure that we're adding double-sided tape to the bottom of the rug so that they don't create a trip hazard, right? And then, of course, if we have like any cords or wires along the walls from any lamps or maybe if we have cord phones still in the home, you want to make sure that you tape those along the strips of the wall. It's a very simple exercise, and if you have to get a friend or a loved one to kind of assist, that's something that's a good like group project to kind of work out on, so we can kind of limit those fall risks. The second one we want to look at is the stairs, right? We want to make sure that when we have stairs that we put up sturdy handrails on both sides of the stairs, right? And if it's needed, let's make sure that we have like proper lighting, even if that means that we have to have an electrician make sure that we have proper lighting at the base and at the top of the stairs so that we don't have any trip hazards without, with poor vision or while we're going up and down the stairs. And then, of course, if you have carpet on the stairs, you want to make sure that it's firmly attached to every step, because believe it or not, some of the most dangerous falls that we've seen actually happen just from having something like a little loose carpet on a stair, right? So that if you can have time, you want to act now on doing that and make sure that carpet is attached to the stairs if you do have that concern, right? Step three, we want to look at the kitchen, right? If we have any spills in the kitchen, the first step is, of course, to clean up spills as soon as they happen, right? Don't let stuff linger because it can cause a slip hazard down the road. Of course, if you have a step stool because you may have challenges like reaching things, maybe on counters or in cabinets, you want to make sure that you use a step stool that actually has a handrail, right? You never want to use the back of a chair as a stool because those are very unsturdy, and that can cause, really dangerous kind of falls, right? And then, of course, if you notice that you have a lot of items that you use more routinely, it's probably a very simple procedure to move those to a lower shelf so that we don't have to necessarily reach up or use stools to actually access those. So those are some quick things that we want to take a look at when we're in the kitchen. Now, moving on into the bathroom, right? You see that we can basically do a good job by looking at if we have any rubber mats or if you want to put, like, if you have rubber mats on the floors, you want to put self-stick strips on the floors, or like double-sided tape on the back of those rubber mats. And then, of course, if you in the shower, you want to put like those self-stick surfaces on the tub to kind of give you some friction when we're standing in the showers. If necessary, you want to make sure that you put up some grab bars inside the tub or in the showers. And if necessary, hey, let's go ahead and think about maybe getting a handheld shower to come help us access certain areas so that we don't have to do too much maneuvering while we're in the shower. And then sometimes it may just be a good idea just to think about getting a shower seat with the rails, right? And that right there is a very good safe device. And I'm gonna take a little quick segue because I know for some of you all who may actually have Medicare or Medicare Advantage plans, I know a lot of those types of Medicare Advantage plans do have resources for what they call over-the-counter items, as well as durable medical equipment, and they do have some benefits that are included already in there, such that if you need to talk to your healthcare provider, or if they write you a script for durable medical device like we're talking about, like the safety seat in a shower, a lot of those types of plans actually have benefits where you can actually get those at a very deep discount. So definitely bring that up. Don't hesitate, because it's one of those things that can be the difference between having a bad fall in the shower or not. right? Going on, we want to talk about looking at the bedrooms, right? If you look in the bedrooms, you want to make sure that you have lamps on either side of the bed, on the end tables, and then if you need to, definitely keep like a night light. If you're one of those people that needs to get up in the middle of the night, sometimes a lot of nasty falls happen because we just didn't see something, or maybe there was a pit on the floor or something that we left on the floor, and just not having a night light to go from the bed to the bathroom can be the difference maker. So that's something to keep in mind. And then of course, when we look at outside the home, you want to put in, like, if you have the ability, those motion sensor lights along your walking paths, those dawn to dusk lights. Those are really good because sometimes if we're going out, and especially when time changes, like in the fall, it starts getting darker sooner. Those are the times that you want to make sure that you have like either lights on the walk path, or definitely keep your porch lights on when you're going in and around the driveway and stuff, going in and out of the home, right? Of course, if you have like a porch or deck or walkways out, you want to make sure that you do a good job of keeping it free of clutter. And then, of course, any kind of leaves or debris, because those can create trip hazards as well, just in and outside of the home. All right. Now, going forward, I noticed that we also want to talk about some other items. Give me 1 second, because I think I lost my little presentation. Here we go. All right, so we're going on to the next step, which is talking about functional footwear. And this is a very simple step, right? Because your shoes actually help provide traction, right? And it's important to choose them wisely, because changing your footwear can actually help you prevent falls. Now, you want to make sure that when you're choosing footwear, that it helps you, in these three key areas. First, you want non-skid type shoes, right? Your shoes should have non-skid rubber soles that aren't too thick and aren't too thin, right? Because we don't really want to start walking in slippery footwear, including socks and like slippers or flip-flops, because those can be tripping hazards, right? We talked about we want to go with low heel shoes, right? For our ladies out there, we want to make sure we avoid high heels, and also, like we were talking about, flip-flops, because heels can make you feel less steady, and those flip-flops, they can be tripping hazards as well. And then of course, we want supportive shoes, shoes that are firm, sturdy, and can fully support your feet. So remember, when you check your shoes often, and try to replace them when you start feeling like the tread wear on them, same way as you would do it on a tire on a car, right? You want to make sure that you have good sturdy shoes and with sturdy soles, right? And one of the next items is talking about getting our eyes and ears checked on a routine basis. Because one of the things we definitely find out is it's very important to have vision and hearing checks done on an annual basis, right? We got to keep in mind, even small changes in our vision and hearing can cause a fall. So if you need glasses or contacts, be sure to wear them when they're needed. And then of course, ask your optometrist if your glasses need to be updated from your last time you had your exam, right? And then, of course, if you have a hearing aid, right, wear it, right? Because making sure it fits well is a key item. And then want to talk to your provider if you think you need one. Now, I'm going to take a little segue here, because I talked about Medicare, right? Those of us who do have Medicare or Medicare Advantage plans, I'll be more specific. A lot of times those types of plans do have benefits that already allow for you to get those type of checkups, like with your vision and your hearing. They have benefits a lot of times embedded in there, so where you can actually have an annual checkup on your vision and your hearing, and sometimes at no copay, so at no cost. So definitely talk to your insurance company or your insurance provider about those types of benefits, because it's something that if you can access it, definitely use it, right? Going forward, we also talked about being mindful when we're outside. Now, a lot of times outdoor falls are often caused by uneven sidewalks, curbs, and slippery surfaces, right? And so these tips can really help us. Really, first, we want to always look ahead of our path, right? Because what we want to do is just kind of keep an eye out where we may see some fall hazards, or if we see like a break in the concrete, you got to be careful of those things, right? You want to navigate uneven surfaces slowly, right? And it may not necessarily be slowly. You want to just take it at your own pace, right? You want to be extra careful anytime there's inclement weather. If we know it's raining, and sometimes we get those flash floods around here in the Houston area, hey, we got to make sure that we're taking things at our own pace and be extra careful when it's wet outside, or if we see some inclement weather. We want to look for curb cuts, right? If we're having to step down from the street level up to the sidewalk, be careful about that. And then also only walk in well-lit areas when we're walking in the evenings, right? And then, of course, being a senior in our communities, if you notice that there's a sidewalk that needs to repair, there's no person who I know who can get things done around in the community as our senior population. So if you need to call your local health department or transportation department to get those sidewalks cleared up, definitely call 411. They can get somebody out there to take a look at that for you. All right. So last piece that we want to talk about is what happens if you've already experienced a fall or if you do experience a fall, right? And this is one of those pieces that can be a game changer for, future instances. So, because unfortunately, we can't always prevent a fall. We can do as much as we can to limit our risk, but we always can't prevent them. So if you do fall, there are some steps that you want to take to help get yourself back up safely, right? The first step is to stay as calm as possible, right? Because first of all, a fall can be startling. And it's important to try, if you did have that experience, to just try and relax, right? Calm down your breathing so that you can help regain your composure, right? Then, after taking some deep breaths to try to relax, remain on the ground for a few moments just to help get over the shock of being standing and now having fallen, right? Just give yourself a second just to kind of calm down. And then of course if you're in the presence of others, they may be rushing over to you, like, let everybody know, hey, let's calm down, give me a second so that I can regain composure. That's step one, right? Step two, you want to assess yourself to just see if you're hurt, right? Because if you think you can get up without help, first you want to make sure that you roll over onto your side, right? And in that resting position, you want to basically kind of crawl with your hands up, you know, and then that's going to help you relegate your blood pressure and trying to relegate your hormone levels as you're trying to inch your way to maybe like a surface, like a seat of a chair, right? And then you want to, next step is get up slowly if you are able, and so you want to crawl to a sturdy chair and just kind of help yourself rise, and then immediately just put yourself in the seat and just kind of you know get back to composure. And so that's really a simple three-step process if you have an experience with a fall, right? Now, if you're hurt, definitely ask for help, right? And don't be afraid to call 911 if it's necessary. So making sure that you always have access to like a portable cell phone is always good. Or if you live with someone or someone who like a loved one who's nearby, make sure that you can reach out to them in case you have experienced a fall and need assistance, because they may be able to help get over to you and give you some assistance in getting back up. And then of course also like having access to an emergency response system actually helps. Because a lot of times we do have like those devices that actually just has like a press of a button can put you in contact with an operator, right, who can get an emergency response team there. And one of those things I do want to point out is that once again with Medicare plans, a lot of times they do have those benefits available. So that's something to keep in mind. The next, so with all that being said, I just want to do a quick review before we end today's class, right? Basically, the first item I want to cover is falls are a big deal, and a simple slip or trip can have major consequences. This is why it's also important to do everything you can to prevent falls. Remember that most falls are a combination of risk factors, and many of those risk factors are controllable. So we want to talk to our healthcare provider about concerns we have about regarding falls, and then see if they can give us some tools to stay positive and to help prevent those situations. And then of course, if our provider says, okay, we definitely want to try and stay physically active, try some exercise programs to keep our strength and our balance up. It's also important to remove or reduce those fall hazards in and around the home, which we covered. And then make sure we're wearing supportive footwear, right, that don't create slip situations, whether we're talking about heels or flip-flops. We want to make sure that we have steady, comfortable shoes. And then in the unfortunate event, if you do have a fall, first step, remain calm. Try and get up slowly and maybe get it to a seated position, and then consider taking measures that you can help mitigate any kind of falls in the future. All right. Well, guys, I really want to just thank you all for attending today's class, and I really enjoyed the time that I got to share with you, virtually, and hopefully we'll get a chance to see each other again soon. Once again, falls are, something that we can basically mitigate, and that's what we want to focus on today. So I want to thank you for attending today's class. My information is here, for you in case you need to reach out to me. I have access to you at all times.